What if I told you that one of the greatest mysteries in history, an enigma spanning continents and centuries, could be solved today? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll uncover a story that connects ancient prophecies to modern miracles. And trust me, it's not what you expect. Before we dive into this incredible journey, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss more stories that bring history to life. In a time long past, Jacob wrestled with the divine and earned the name Israel, a symbol of a covenant with God. From this act, the 12 tribes were born. Each son carried a destiny etched into the sands of history. As Jacob's voice echoed prophetic words over his sons, a sense of divine mystery surrounded their futures. Little did they know, the fate of 10 tribes would vanish, becoming one of history's greatest enigmas. Years later, the tribes united under King David and Solomon, forging an era of peace and splendor. Jerusalem's golden era saw the construction of the majestic temple, symbolizing divine favor. Yet, within this unity brewed seeds of discord. As Solomon's reign waned, cracks began to show, foreshadowing a division that would change history. Upon Solomon's death, the kingdom fractured. The southern tribes, Judah and Benjamin, formed Judah, while the northern 10 tribes became Israel. Bitter divisions over worship and leadership led the northern tribes into rebellion, setting the stage for their eventual scattering. Prophets like Amos and Hosea warned the northern kingdom of their idolatry and disobedience. The people ignored these calls to repentance. In 722 BCE, the Assyrian Empire descended, capturing the northern tribes and scattering them across vast lands. Their identities began to blur. As centuries passed, the lost tribes of Israel became a legend. From the Americas to Asia, tales of their survival emerged. Groups with Jewish-like customs claimed descent, sparking fascination and debate about their origins and the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. In the heart of Africa, the Beta Israel, or Ethiopian Jews, held fast to ancient traditions that mirrored those of Israel. They claimed descent from the tribe of Dan, maintaining customs like Sabbath observance and circumcision. Their oral history spoke of a migration from Israel through Egypt, following paths of exile. Isolated from other Jewish communities, their rituals remained unchanged for centuries. In modern times, through miraculous operations such as Moses, 1984, and Solomon, 1991, tens of thousands of Beta Israel were airlifted to Israel. These operations were seen as a modern echo of prophetic fulfillment, a physical regathering of the exiled tribes. Their integration into Israeli society marked a profound moment, both politically and spiritually, reigniting questions about the other tribes still scattered. Across the Arabian Sea, a small Jewish community in India, the Bnei Israel, traced their roots to the tribe of Ephraim. Their oral tradition told of an ancient shipwreck that stranded their ancestors on the Indian coast. Despite centuries of isolation, they preserved key customs, Sabbath observance, circumcision, and dietary laws. For generations, they lived among Indian neighbors, blending yet maintaining their distinct identity. In modern times, many Bnei Israel members made Aliyah, immigration to Israel, contributing to Israel's rich cultural tapestry. Their resilience and survival stood as a testament to the enduring spirit of the lost tribes and raised questions about similar groups in other regions. In the rugged landscapes of Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Pastan tribes or Pathans carried a striking narrative. They claimed to be Bnei Israel, descendants of Ephraim and Manasseh. Their traditions included circumcision, avoidance of pork, and tribal names resembling the Israelites. Oral histories, passed down for centuries, affirmed their connection to the lost tribes. Despite skepticism from outsiders, the Pashtun people fiercely upheld these traditions. Some even believed their preservation was a divine mandate, waiting for the moment of prophetic return. With tens of millions of Pashtun alive today, their claim, if true, could redefine the scale of Israel's lost heritage. Deep in Nigeria, The Igbo people believed they descended from the tribes of Gad and Zebulun. Their culture reflected ancient Israelite practices: circumcision on the 8th day, dietary restrictions, and religious festivals. The Igbo's oral histories tied them to the time of the Assyrian exile, claiming their ancestors were scattered to Africa. Though largely isolated, many Igbos converted formally to Judaism, seeking recognition from the broader Jewish world. Their persistence in reclaiming their heritage drew attention and speculation about the possibility of undiscovered connections to the lost tribes across Africa. The Lemba people of Zimbabwe and South Africa held a unique claim. They were descendants of the tribe of Levi. Their customs mirrored ancient Israelite law, including kosher practices and Sabbath observance. Genetic testing in recent years revealed the Cohen modal haplotype, a marker linked to the priestly lineage of Aaron within many Lemba males. This discovery sent ripples through the Jewish and scientific communities, offering tangible evidence of their Israelite origins. For the Lemba, this was not just validation, but a calling, a sign of their role in the prophesied return of the tribes. Ezekiel's vision of the Valley of Dry Bones foretold the restoration of Israel. The prophet watched as lifeless bones came together, sinews and flesh returning, and breath reanimating them. God declared this a symbol of the tribe's return. I will make them one nation, and they will never again be divided. This prophecy gave hope that the lost tribes were not forgotten. Centuries of exile, assimilation, and isolation had not erased them from God's plan. As scattered groups began to re-emerge, Ezekiel's vision resonated, suggesting their return was a divine promise. Scholars and believers alike saw this as a sign of end-time fulfillment. Across the Atlantic, indigenous groups in the Americas began claiming connections to the lost tribes. Some believed their ancestors were remnants of Israelite exiles, reaching the New World through ancient migrations. The Navajo, Cherokee, and others referenced oral traditions and cultural practices resembling those of ancient Israel. Though controversial, these claims captured the imagination of explorers and theologians. Were these tribes descendants of Israel or symbolic reflections of shared humanity? For some, this connection was proof of divine intervention, scattering Israel to the ends of the earth, as foretold. In the dense jungles of Myanmar and India, the Neimanash emerged. Claiming descent from the tribe of Manasseh, they preserved customs such as Sabbath observance and kosher dietary laws. Their oral histories spoke of an arduous journey from Israel, through Persia, and into Asia. Despite their isolation, these traditions endured, and in modern times, the Neimanash began migrating to Israel. Their arrival was seen as a prophetic step toward the regathering of the exiles, reigniting hope that the lost tribes were finally being revealed. Isaiah proclaimed a second gathering. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. These words fueled the belief that the tribe's reappearance signified a divine timeline unfolding. Modern Israel's establishment and the return of groups like Beta Israel and Neimanash were seen as fulfillment of this prophecy. Yet questions remained: where were the others? As genetic research and cultural studies advanced, the search intensified. Each rediscovery felt like a piece of a cosmic puzzle, bringing humanity closer to the Messianic age. Revelation 7 speaks of 144,000 sealed individuals, 12,000 from each tribe. This passage symbolized not just restoration, but divine protection for the tribes in the end times. As groups continued to claim Israelite ancestry, many believed they were witnessing the fulfillment of Revelation. The vision of a unified Israel, bringing together all 12 tribes, became a beacon of hope. It was more than a historical curiosity, it was a prophetic certainty. The return of these tribes carried not only historical but eschatological weight, a reminder that God's promises endure through time. If you could solve one ancient mystery, which would it be? Would you try to unlock the secrets of the lost tribes of Israel, or perhaps something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to see what captivates your imagination. The search for the lost tribes gained momentum in modern times as historical, cultural, and genetic research intertwined. Groups like the Beta Israel and Neimanash were not only rediscovering their connection to Israel, but also reshaping what it meant to be part of the Jewish world. These rediscoveries were filled with challenges. Questions of legitimacy, integration, and recognition sparked debates across communities and nations. Yet for those returning, the journey was deeply spiritual, a fulfillment of ancestral longing. Each individual's story revealed a profound struggle to preserve faith and identity against centuries of isolation. The world began to see the lost tribes not as a distant mystery, but as a living testimony to resilience and divine promise. Modern science brought a new dimension to the search for the lost tribes. Genetic research revealed connections between groups like the Lemba and ancient Israelites, lending credibility to their oral histories. The discovery of the Cohen modal haplotype in the Lemba tribe, linked to the priestly lineage of Aaron, was groundbreaking. Other groups awaited testing, hopeful their genetic markers would reveal ties to their claimed heritage. These discoveries reignited interest among scholars, theologians, and believers, pushing the boundaries of how history and faith intersect. For many, it wasn't just about ancestry, it was about being part of a prophetic narrative that transcended time. The return of the lost tribes brought not only joy, but also complex challenges. In Israel, returning groups often faced skepticism and cultural barriers. Integration into modern Jewish society required adjustments on both sides. Beta Israel faced racial discrimination. The Neimanash struggled to adapt to urban life. Yet, their shared heritage fueled efforts to bridge these divides. Stories of perseverance emerged as these groups worked to maintain their unique traditions while embracing their new homeland. Their resilience inspired others to keep searching for scattered remnants, believing the prophetic reunion of all tribes was drawing closer. As interest in the lost tribes spread, new claims emerged from unexpected corners of the world. In Japan, some Shinto rituals bore striking resemblances to Israelite practices. In Africa, tribes like the Yoruba and Awe began exploring connections to ancient Israel. Even in South America, indigenous groups told stories of ancestral migrations that aligned with biblical timelines. Though not all claims could be substantiated, they added to the growing narrative that the lost tribes were not forgotten. Each new discovery, whether confirmed or not, reignited the collective imagination, fueling a sense of global connection and divine purpose. The reappearance of the lost tribes wasn't just a historical or cultural phenomenon, it was deeply tied to biblical prophecy. Ezekiel, Isaiah, and Revelation all spoke of a time when the scattered would return, forming a unified Israel under the Messiah. This promise gave spiritual significance to every rediscovery. The regathering wasn't merely a human effort, but a divine act unfolding in real time. As believers worldwide watched these events, many saw them as signs of an approaching messianic age. The lost tribes weren't just history, they were the future, a key to understanding God's ultimate plan for humanity. The notion of the lost tribes returning was more than a Jewish dream, it became a global phenomenon. As stories of rediscovered tribes spread, people from diverse nations felt a sense of shared history. Some Christians viewed these events as precursors to the Messianic age, while others saw them as a call for unity among humanity. Pilgrimages to Israel increased as groups like the Beta Israel, Neimanash, and Lemba began arriving in Jerusalem. For them, walking through the streets of the holy city wasn't just a physical journey, it was the culmination of centuries of faith and longing. The sight of diverse peoples reconnecting to their ancestral roots inspired awe and reflection, highlighting the universality of the human spirit and its connection to divine promises. Ezekiel's vision of the Valley of Dry Bones seemed abstract for centuries, but with the reemergence of the lost tribes, its imagery came alive. Families long thought erased by history now walked together in the Promised Land. Their return wasn't just physical, it was deeply spiritual. As they reunited with Judah, ancient enmities dissolved. Prophecies spoke of this moment as a time when God would put His Spirit in His people, uniting them under one banner. For many, The literal fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision was a divine affirmation, a reminder that even in desolation, there was hope for restoration. The return of the lost tribes was accompanied by a renewed understanding of covenant. Prophets like Jeremiah had foretold a time when God would write his law on the hearts of his people. This wasn't just about rituals, but about a transformative relationship with the divine. Those returning brought with them a rich tapestry of traditions, yet they all shared a longing for unity and purpose. In Israel, schools, synagogues, and communities worked to merge ancient customs with modern life, creating a dynamic expression of faith. This new covenant was seen not as the rejection of the old, but as its fulfillment, a step closer to the messianic promise of peace and restoration. Throughout history, the idea of the Messiah was central to the Jewish understanding of the tribe's return. Isaiah and Revelation painted vivid pictures of a leader who would reunite the scattered people and bring global peace. As the tribes returned, many looked to the skies, expecting signs of the Messiah's arrival. This anticipation was not confined to Israel. Around the world, believers from various faiths interpreted these events as heralding a new age. The return of the tribes became a living prophecy, a reminder that humanity's ultimate redemption lay not in division, but in unity under divine leadership. The culmination of the tribes' return was marked by a global event, a gathering that fulfilled ancient prophecies. People from the far corners of the earth converged on Jerusalem, their paths illuminated by faith and destiny. Tribes once thought extinct stood side by side, their songs echoing through the city's ancient streets. This event wasn't just a celebration of history, it was a declaration of hope for the future. As the tribes assembled, the promise of a unified Israel under the Messiah seemed within reach. The sight of all nations joining in worship transformed this moment into a foretaste of a redeemed world. As the lost tribes continued their journey home, the world took notice. Leaders, historians, and spiritual figures from every corner of the globe spoke about the unprecedented gathering of scattered people. For some, this was a testament to human resilience and the enduring power of faith. For others, it was a sign of a divine timeline unfurling. News outlets covered the stories of individual tribes, from the Beta Israel to the Pastans, as they reunited with their brethren. In the midst of global conflicts and crises, the return of the tribes became a symbol of unity and hope, drawing attention to ancient prophecies that still held meaning in the modern age. The gathering wasn't just a Jewish event, it was a global moment that called humanity to reflect on shared heritage and divine purpose. The return of the lost tribes reached a climactic moment as representatives from each group gathered under a single banner in Jerusalem. This act symbolized the unity prophesied in Ezekiel, where God would make them one nation, under one king. Tribal elders, carrying ancient artifacts and scrolls, stood together in a ceremony filled with music, prayer, and proclamations of peace. Witnesses described the moment as deeply spiritual, a glimpse of the messianic age foretold in Scripture. It wasn't just a reunion of people, it was a merging of histories, cultures, and destinies into a singular narrative of divine restoration. Central to the prophetic narrative was the idea of rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem, a unifying place for worship and communion with God. As the tribes returned, the dream of a restored temple became a reality. Craftsmen from all over the world, inspired by biblical descriptions, began constructing a place that echoed the grandeur of Solomon's temple while incorporating the diversity of modern Israel. For many, this act was the ultimate fulfillment of prophecy, marking the arrival of the Messianic age. Pilgrims traveled from every nation to witness the dedication ceremony, which was filled with sacred rituals, music, and declarations of peace. The temple stood as a beacon of hope, a reminder of God's eternal covenant with His people. The unity of the 12 tribes marked the beginning of a new era in human history. Under the leadership of the Messiah, justice and peace flourished. The prophecies of Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Revelation found fulfillment as swords were beaten into plowshares and nations no longer waged war. The Messiah's wisdom guided not only Israel, but the entire world, uniting humanity under a banner of divine love and purpose. This age wasn't defined by miracles alone, but by the transformation of hearts and minds, as people of every background came together to worship the one true God. The restoration of the tribes didn't just change Israel, it transformed the world. Nations once divided by borders, ideologies, and conflicts began working together, inspired by the unity of the tribes. The Messianic age brought a renewed sense of purpose and harmony, as humanity recognized its shared destiny. The tribes of Israel became a living testament to God's promises, a reminder that even in the face of exile and despair, hope could be restored. This transformation wasn't just about the past, it was about building a future rooted in faith, unity, and divine love. The story of the lost tribes was no longer a mystery, it was a revelation of what was possible when humanity aligned itself with God's eternal plan. What we've uncovered today is more than just history, it's a connection across time and space, a testament to human resilience and faith. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good mystery, and join the community by subscribing. Let's keep exploring the past to illuminate our future.